To order the regular meeting, Thursday, December 5th, 2019. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Senegal.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come gathered again thanking you for having us gather on this great day. God, we ask that you bless every soul and every being that's in the house tonight to do your will and also the will of the people. Lord, we have so much to be thankful for. We have those that will be remaining with you into the new year. We have those that we're going to be moving on to different journeys. And certainly we have those who are going to be joining us. We ask that you continue to bless us to do the very best job that we can do. Not just a job, but the very best job that we can be. All these blessings we ask in your name, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Little reminder to please silence your phone, and if you want to speak on any item on the agenda, fill out the blue slip in the back and bring it up front to Ms. Jess. Ms. Jessica. Roll call. Ms. Kathy.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Abshire?
Here.
Mr. Interpont?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Brain?
Here.
Mr. Collins was unable to attend this evening. Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Guillory is present.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Latour?
Here.
Vice President McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Senegal?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy?
Here.
And President Mayo.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy.
You're welcome.
Number 4, consideration of adopting ordinances ordering the condemnation of the following structures. A, 221 Chili, West Lawn Road, Carlos area. Staff recommends that the structure be condemned and removed within 30 days. Is there anyone here to speak on this item?
Where's Mr. What you call him?
I'm Herman
Name and address
Westland.
for the record, please.
Those pictures right there, especially that one there, I've been working on the old house. It's
Excuse me. Name and address for the record, please.
Herman Westland, 221 Chili Westland Road, Sulphur, Louisiana.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. I hadn't been working for a while and then just taking time to get money to built up to buy materials for the old house. But it don't look like it can be fixed, but it can. And I got friends, they give me stuff, paint and wood and stuff to try to fix it up. And if it wouldn't be for them, you know, I'd be in worse shape than what I am right now. But the old house, it needs work. But one thing about it, it does not leak. It's got a rubber roof on it. Got hardwood floors on it. I got a lot. I've been using it as a storage building, and I don't have any other place to put it, and that's the only place that I was able to. And I got all my neighbors. They don't want to see that house gone. I mean, it ain't hurting anybody. They're used to seeing it there, and that's the only thing left of my mom and daddy right there. And now I want some more time.
Bears.
Mr. Thank y'all for coming. So since the last time we visited this, you haven't been able to do anything?
Hold up, Mr. Bears.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I have to apologize. We need a motion and a second to discuss.
Go ahead, motion discuss.
Sorry about that. Motion by Mr.
Second.
Mr. Barris, second.
So
Motion by Mr. Bears and a second by Mr. Brain to discuss. Go ahead, Mr. Bears.
So you haven't been able to do anything to it?
I was doing that outside on that north side, and the the bees got a hold of me. Those honeybees.
Uh-huh.
And then anytime I'd start nailing or what, or doing something to the side of the house right there. I got one sheet of this shiplap or board and batten, and
So, do you have any photos of the work that you've done? Like, any progress? Because that's the thing, we need to, I understand the situation, but, you know, these pictures here, you see points of entry. This is definitely not straight out of Better Homes and Gardens. I mean, I'll tell you that. And I mean, we deferred it for 30 days, I believe, Mr. Crane.
Yes, sir.
And man, we're not seeing any progress. Do you want to?
Mr. Crane.
Madam President, Mr. Barris, first of all, I understand, you know, this has some sentimental value for, you know, this family. And we certainly understand that. But this structure it's not in good shape. And it is, it's definitely condemnable. We really haven't authorized them to go out there and do any work on it. Really what should happen is there should have been a list of what those repairs needed to be, and then come back to this jury so that that list could be evaluated to determine if what they're going to do on the structure is going to bring it up to the standard.
Acceptable code.
So, because we don't want them to go out there and spend money on something that, you know, it's not going to help them. So, we're still requesting that this structure be condemned and removed in 30 days.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr.
And another sticking point for me is there's the house and then there's the land. Jennifer owns the land. She's 51% or she's the majority. Am I? There's a little this gray area there, and I have been told that Jennifer Hoffpower owns the majority of this, and so if this, okay, let me
Hold on 1 minute
finish,
now.
please.
Yes.
I'm just telling y'all what I have been told. So, if that is the case, and this house does not, I mean, y'all don't do the demolition, and we have to do it, well then, as the majority landowner, she would incur those costs, right? The lien would be on her. You know, so there's some worry about that too. It's not I don't think it's as cut and dry as just tearing down a house. It's it's definitely a mess.
Well,
The situation's as messy as a house.
well, according to the assessor's office, tax assessor's office, it's listed under Jennifer Hoffpower et al.
Okay.
In care of Dolores Ann Westland. And so what that means is there's multiple people that have an interest in this property. Okay? And so that's why, I mean, when we send notice out, that's why it goes to this Miss Dolores Ann Westland at 1005 North Tanahal Street, Vidor, Texas. So that's where the notice officially goes to,
Correct.
okay?
When I spoke to Jennifer, that's the only person I knew I had the contact, and I told her about it. And it's like I said, it's evidently y'all got to work some stuff out. In addition to getting this house taken care of.
it's going to be taken care of.
Well,
It's just taking time.
And I understand that. I totally understand that. But we have our ordinances, and a lot of times we hear that, and then we don't have the people that's going to keep going back, keep going back to make sure y'all are doing what you're supposed to do. I mean, all I can do is stand by, you know, the recommendation.
I don't know why, I don't know why y'all gotta be so intent on taking that old house down.
Mr. Crane wants to talk.
Huh? All right.
Well, what I was going to say is that in a situation like this, with this structure in the condition that it's in, it would be my recommendation that we need to have a contractor go look at this structure to see what the repairs would be. And I can tell you, it's probably going to be cost prohibitive based on what they're going to have to do to this structure in order to bring it up to up to code.
Okay.
For living purposes, not for storage, because that's not what this structure was designed for.
So maybe would this be the time possibly to defer this for 30 days with that recommendation to get the contractor, to get this shopping list together, and then at that point, I mean, we can do it for 15 days, whatever, Mr. Robson. I mean, just go ahead.
It would be upon them. They would have to hire a contractor,
Right.
not us.
They would have to hire a contractor to see what it is, what repairs need to be done in order to get this house
Up to code.
up to code. Not a code to be a shop, but a code to be a house.
We have all
Who
the,
is, what is your name?
Teddy Westland,
Okay, go
we
ahead.
have all the equipment and everything that we can bring the house up to par. We just need a little more time. We got all the paint, we got all the lumber and everything.
But the thing is we have to, you guys have to know what par is, from a contractor standpoint, okay?
We can't do it ourselves?
You
If we
you
get
can, but a
permit?
contractor has to let you know
Chris wanted
this, and this have to be done for this house to be up to code. Yeah. Okay?
Mr. Bears, Mr. Landry has something he wanted to say. You want to speak, Mr. Landry?
I'll wait till he gets finished.
Can we get your name and address for the record, please? No. Yes.
Teddy Westland, 237 Chili Westland Road, Suffolk.
Okay. Mr. Bears,
The house is next door to me.
I'm good for right now. Let Mr. Landry go.
Landry?
Okay, my first issue is, you know, when we handle these, Mr. Robinson comes to the microphone and he presents the case and he tells us what they recommend, and then we either make a motion to discuss or we make a motion to have the property condemned or what have you. So if I would like Mr. Robinson to come up and I have some questions for him. And I mean, Mr. Crane, you've been answering the questions, but I'm sure you're not the guy that's out there that's been going to the house, and I'm sure they've reported back to you.
That's correct.
So would you rather me direct the questions to you?
You certainly may.
Hey, that's fine. I just don't know why we changed it up tonight. The pictures that we're looking at is October the 14th. This came before us evidently on October the 24th. Why do I not have newer photographs than that? I mean, I don't think they're going to look any different, but I would like
No,
them
and
to
that's
have been
the thing
dated
is
this week.
typically we would record, you know, when we go back out there and do the reinspection before the meeting, and we would record that. This was presented to y'all, and it was deferred for 30 days. So
Well, I
Mr.
remember.
Robinson, he had already gone through the motions of telling you about the structure and everything.
Okay.
So it was deferred, you know, because they got up and they
We're gonna give 'em some
requested,
time.
and there was a motion to defer. So to me, the structure should not, it hasn't changed. We haven't authorized it to change.
Okay, has
So-
one of y'all's inspectors gone to that piece of property in the last week?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. That should have happened, then that way we could have a report on exactly what it looks like. I don't really think it looks much different from what he's told us.
And
So
I don't think it has. I think it should have stayed in this state because we haven't authorized them to do anything on this structure.
Well, yeah, he needs a permit. That'd be the first thing that he needs. So that means if whatever work he has done, he's done without a permit. Has there been any contact? And look, I do remember the case, and I remember him being here. What did we tell them to do? Were they supposed to get with staff to get that list? Hey, here's all the things that need to be done for you to.
Yeah, during that period, they were gonna, y'all requested them to get with us to see what needed to happen on this property.
And let me just go ahead and ask you, did that ever happen?
It has not.
It did not happen. So that's the first problem. Y'all have to get with the staff to find out what needs to be done. I don't think we're really worried about paint. I mean, obviously it needs painting, but that building is in way worse shape than that. And really, had you come back today, or if we saw pictures that the grass had been cut, all those trees that are growing up around that storage building had been removed, and the property looked much better, and then we kind of got that out of the way, that doesn't take money. I mean, that just takes somebody some time and out there working in the yard. That's not something that's expensive to do. So had all that been done, I would kind of want to work with y'all. But really, you're going to spend a fortune trying to get this thing in, up to code to where it won't be condemned. I mean, there's just no way. You'll never get your money back. There's no way. And I know it's a sentimental piece of property, but I mean, there's at some point you kind of got to cut your losses. And if we tear it down for you, that's going to cost you a fortune. I mean, it'd be better that y'all had somebody tear it down. And one question that I do have for y'all is, when you say we need a little bit more time, now, of course, you're saying that not knowing all what needs to be done because y'all haven't got with the staff, but from what y'all do know, what is a little bit more time? What does that mean to y'all?
How much?
It's gonna be over 3 months.
Wait, he wants to talk, Herman. Wait.
What?
Go ahead.
So you're saying, no, I'm directing the question to you folks.
Just a little more time.
Right, but what does a little more time mean?
A couple
To
months.
me,
How
a
about
little
that?
more time is like
3
2 or
months.
3 weeks. So you're saying 3 months?
3 months.
Mr. Crane, go ahead.
Crane.
I mean, if that's all right,
Yes.
Madam President.
Again, my suggestion, this structure is in such bad shape that they would need to hire a contractor to go out there, and we can be with the contractor as on the site, and we can show and point out to that contractor what we're saying is a problem. But until the contractor goes out there and really determines what, I mean, we don't know, there's rotten seals, I mean, we have no idea.
Yeah, I see it.
I mean, so until that until the contractor says, hey, it's going to take me 3 months to get this thing up to, and it's going to cost them X amount of dollars, I don't know. I'm telling you, in the condition it's in, it's cost prohibitive.
Right. Well, and I mean, look, if they want to spend $100,000 fixing it, that's their business. But I don't know why you would do that.
Mr. Bean.
I'm done. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Bean.
Excuse me, thank you, Madam President. Just trying to answer the gentleman's question as to the timing. The reason for the ordinance is it's public health and safety. And you have a big obligation for that because there are others who it affects other people. It's not that the jury, of course, wants to tear people's houses down. And so I wanted to make sure he understood why the time is an issue and it just can't be indefinite. There's reasons y'all are asking that. So it does come back to that as to why, unfortunately, these have to be done sometimes if y'all decide. But it's not just arbitrary.
Mr. Senegal. Mr. Senegal.
Well, Mr. Bean just touched on it. It was an area that I wanted to touch on in respect to your family. I've been a part of, environmental issues and helping with projects that had to be torn down or restored or what have you. And I just want you guys to be aware of the safety risk that you run to yourself. You mentioned earlier that, at one part the bees or wasps or what have you got to you. There are other environmental issues that could be wrong inside the house. Just being in there could be a potential risk. So I just wanted to make you guys aware, sometimes you want to do something, but with that effort, you can also cause harm to yourself. So like Mr. Bean said, I don't think these inspectors go out there with the intentions to take anyone's property or destroy it, but looking at the position that it's in, they're recommending based off their expertise. So I just want you guys to be aware that I am sympathetic to your situation, but I want you to be aware of the risk that you run to yourself undertaking a project like that without a certified contractor.
Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Madam President. Sam, where does the parish's liability end? When we've discussed a piece of property that is actually open to the public, anybody on the streets could access this property and get inside. If somebody was to be hurt after we've discussed it and let it ride, where does our liability end?
Well,
Are we at risk?
Well, Ms. Farnham, you as a jury, as Mr. Beam stated, the issue before you is, should this property be torn down or not? Is it a public hazard? Is it a problem? Does it meet the standards? The idea of giving more time is always, that's fine. I don't think you run any risk of liability there. But again, we can't get into issues of who owns it. That's not before you. The structure at issue is before you. And if that structure, in your opinion, should be torn down as condemnable, that's what you should do. But again, giving more time, that's certainly within your discretion. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, thank you. Wes? Obviously, they're never going to have electricity hooked up to this. I'm assuming that if it's going to be a storage building, they're probably never going to go apply for a permit to get a meter put on the house. They're just wanting to bring it up to some standard of enclosure in order to use it as a storage building. So, according to our building codes and one thing or another, how does that apply to this building? That, I mean, you can go buy a storage building and drop it in on your lot without getting a permit, without.
Well, not necessarily.
I mean, it happens every day of the week out there. And they'll just back a truck up and drop a storage building off in the
They
yard.
shouldn't be doing that.
And people do it every day.
They shouldn't be.
Yeah. And so do all the same building codes apply to bringing up a building back into an enclosure that they're never going to use for a residence?
Well, the code is different on accessory buildings, storage buildings, than it is for a residential building. And this, of course, was a residential structure.
Yeah, I mean, it can be
And that's how we're
converted to a
viewing
different
it.
purpose
I'm
at
sorry?
any time. It's their discretion to convert it to a different, repurpose the building at any time. You just can never get electricity hooked up to it if it's not established residence, right?
Well, it still has electrical components in it. It still has plumbing components in it. You know,
But they
so
can never be hooked up to anything unless they get a permit to do so.
that's correct.
So I guess when they come in, if we give them more time and they come in to see you guys, they need to be very clear about what their intent is for this building, because it may or may not change the course that they have to go down in order of what kind of standards they need to bring it up to, right?
Correct.
Okay. So y'all just, if that is the vote tonight, y'all just be aware that, be very clear about what your intent for that property is. I'll rest.
Mr. Entrepont.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to rest Mr. Crane for just a minute. There's some disconnected dots to a certain degree. They want to reconstruct the house for a storeroom, as I appreciate it. Under the ordinance, is that legal for them to do that? I mean, this is a house and want to convert it to a storeroom and spend all this money for a storeroom. I'm a little bit confused. There's a disconnect somewhere, and I'm trying to connect the dots.
Well, the way we view it, it was a residential structure. I mean, that's what it was designed for. That's what it was built for whenever it was put on this property. And so to convert it into some storage building, I'm not saying that hasn't been done before. I'm just saying we need to know, and it specifically needs to be, I guess, designed that way, and we would need to permit it that way.
But if it's a storeroom, you wouldn't need any partitions, as I appreciate it inside, it'd just be one shell of a building. I mean, I don't know what they want to do with it. I mean, that's their business. I
Well,
mean,
it
what-
still
the point I'm
has-
trying to get to, is
yeah.
it legal for them to do that, being as a residential?
Well, right now, in its condition, it still has a bathroom in it, it has bedrooms, it has kitchen, you know, in the condition that it's in.
Does all that have to go?
Possibly.
That's where I'm confused. see.
Yeah.
But leave it as it may, I yield back.
Mr. Scott?
Is there a resident on this exact property where this house now sits, Mr. Crane?
She lives right next door to
Not
that.
on the actual legal property, is there a house on that property besides that one?
There, I think so. Is there-
Well, it matters
Yes.
to your code.
Yeah, it does matter, yeah.
So there is a home legally on that piece of property. So legally, to our codes, that can be an accessory building at the snap of a fingers, and it doesn't matter if it has a bathroom and a kitchen or whatever else in it, it can be considered an accessory building. Our job is not to tell him to hire contractors, spend too much money, spend too little money. Either we're gonna give him 30 or 90 days to move forward on the process at his cost, his way of doing it, or we're gonna condemn it. Because the next one on the agenda, we are giving him 90 days to sell the property, and he's already had 90 days before we even got here. So if the neighbors don't have a problem with it, let the guy work on it for a couple months, see if he gets where he needs to be. So I'd be okay with giving him whatever time he needs. So as an accessory building, that's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Bears?
As far as the accessory building, in there square footage, is there a square footage requirement that would prohibit, like, I don't know what the square footage of this building is, but
We do have a limit on square footage, but I think this property is zoned A1, so it's probably not,
Okay.
it doesn't apply to that.
so this, other than the old house, there is another house on this property?
No, not on
No.
that particular property.
So then there we're back to,
Next door, it's right next door to it.
okay.
She lives right next
I
door.
live right
where
next
Our
door.
mom and them is.
So then, if that's the case, if that's the case, then the accessory building argument is out. So.
Can
we're
y'all
back
pull the
to-
map up in the back? I'm sorry.
Mr. Robinson, can you come up here, please?
We're not.
We're gonna, let Mr. Robinson, approach the microphone, please. Go back to the, aerial view, thank you.
Okay, if you see the map,
On that,
221, that's the structure in question. Right
Correct.
behind is where Miss Westland lives.
237.
So it's all on the same property.
It's all same legal description.
same legal.
Okay, so it is.
Same
the
legal
same
description.
Yeah, the legal description is the same.
So then, all right, so we're back to a potential, multiple.
Tell them what they're saying.
I'm gonna make a motion for 90 days time, okay? You're gonna have to, I want you guys to check in with Mr. David Robinson regularly.
No problem.
Mr. Robinson, go ahead, excuse me.
Yeah, we're gonna have them meet with our chief building official, Mr.
Okay.
David Thibodeau.
All right,
And David is gonna, they're gonna sit down with him and they'll figure out exactly what they need to do.
right.
That would be, within reason.
Satisfactory to everybody
Yeah,
involved.
right.
And if that, they can choose right then and there if they wish to
wanna
proceed
proceed.
or,
Right, yeah, and David, he can go out there and with them present and do a walkthrough of the whole structure
that's right.
and see where we go from there.
Okay,
Can
that,
we do prop?
hang on one
fix it
second.
up
What,
now?
Right.
y'all can catch a sidebar in a minute, but I wanna make sure we're clear as to y'all's part in this equation, okay? If y'all have something scheduled with Mr. Thibodeau, be there, okay? And, you know, if he's given his suggestion, it's his professional, it will be in his professional opinion. I don't think that's all gonna be up to debate. You know, if he says do this, and you say, well, I can just do it with this, a friend of mine gave me this, no, you're gonna have to do it per the recommendations that fit the code, okay? Because if you spend your time arguing, in 90 days, we're gonna be back here looking at the same pictures, and I'm gonna tell David Robinson he's gonna call it a bulldozer. I mean, so we got to make sure that we're working. We're giving you a shot, so let's get together
Yeah,
and make some progress, okay?
And she just asked me if they could start working on the structure. No, they need to wait to meet with us first. Don't
That's
do
correct.
anything until.
That's correct. Hang tight.
Madam President, can we ask Mr. Barris, clarify, is it a 90-day request to defer for 90 days, and the details can be worked out?
I will make a request to defer for 90 days.
Second.
Obviously with the recommendation to get with code enforcement, before doing anything.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris to defer for 90 days and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. B,
Thank y'all.
1305
Thank
Laverne
y'all.
Road, Moss Bluff area. Staff recommends this item be
Move
deferred for 90 days to
90
allow the
days.
property owner time to sell the property. I have a motion by Mr. Scott, a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. C, 3820 Opelousas Street, East Lake Charles area. Staff recommends to allow 60 days from the date of the
Move to
property
defer for
closing
60 days.
or by December 30th, 2019, to complete the submittal list of repairs. I have a motion by Mr. Scott to defer for 30 days, 60 days, and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion?
Madam,
Yes.
Yeah, it's not.
are you requesting deferral or allowing to repair? Because we're asking for allow to repair.
Well, it's still being deferred, repaired. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, it
No.
says,
The action, it won't come back up.
Okay.
The action will be to repair.
all right, to repair, and then
Okay, motion by Mr. Scott to repair, and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 5, presentation of a certificate of recognition to Mr. Alvin J. Edwards in appreciation of 42 years of service as official for the Lake Charles Association of the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Madam President. Could I get Mr. Edwards to come up with me? A lot of times, we never get the chance to really tell the story of people in our community who've made a huge impact on young people and how they've changed their lives. And this young man right here has done an outstanding job with what he's done to so many young people in the community. Let me just tell you a little bit about him. He's been a long life resident of Lake Charles. He's retired from Conoco. He's currently teaching a plant safety course at Sewella. He's a member of the Louisiana Amateur Softball Association Hall of Fame class of 2014. He's a career high school football official who's been ranked as one of the top in the state of Louisiana. He's refereed over 50 playoff games in the Louisiana Superdome. He's refereed 3 state championship games in the Louisiana State Superdome. Let me tell you a little bit about what that does. When you have a young man that can referee that many games at that level, because you only get a grade on every game that you referee, and the association picked the top grades to referee those playoff games. He's done over 50 games. And let me just say, we talked before, one of the best high school players that he says that he's ever refereed, his name was what?
Justin Vincent?
Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards is not only a young man that's refereed high school games, but he's been an impact on so many young people's lives and how he's changed their lives. And I just want to say here to you tonight, the reason why I'm standing here in the capacity that I am is partly because of what you've done. and how you've been an example for us out there doing the things that you've done and giving back to the community. Without referees, there's kids that probably wouldn't even have an activity to do or even feel like they have any goals to look forward to. You made that possible. We want to present this to you tonight on behalf of the police jury. It says, Certificate of Recognition presented by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury on this day, the 5th day of December, 2019, to Mr. Alvin J. Edwards, in honor and appreciation of 42 years of dedicated service as an official of the Lake Charles Association of the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. May God continue to bless you and keep you in all of your endeavors. Mr. Edwards, we love you and thank you for your service.
I'd just like to thank everyone for this award. I really appreciate it. Thank Mr. Guidry. And yeah, he was one of the best football, don't say it, football players in the area, so. Until Justin. So all I want to say is thank you very much, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to get a picture.
Football player? Get ready to get the roll, get the ball to roll.
He was a football player, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't either.
We played on the same team, me and Kevin.
And if I could, would this family just stand for just a minute? A lot of you may know this family. This is a well-known family here in Southwest Louisiana. Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Number 6, take appropriate action on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Madam President, we have 3 applications before you tonight and recommend they be approved.
We have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 7, consideration of approving payments of all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Brain and a second by Ms. Trimmon. Motion by Mr. Ford, and a second by Ms. Trimmon. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 8, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated November 7th, 2019. I have a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 9, consideration of approving the budget committee report dated December 5th, 2019. Mr. Brain.
Thank you, Madam President. The Budget Committee of the Police Jury met today at 5 p.m. and held a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed parish budget for fiscal year 2020. After hearing comments, the committee made a motion to recommend approval of the proposed parish budget for fiscal year 2020 at the police jury's regular meeting on December 19, 2019. The committee also recommended approving of the following request for funding from the gaming fund: $300,000 to the Calcasieu Cameron Hospital Service District from Ward 4 allocation and Ward 4 districts 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 allocations as matching funds for a community clinic. That's the end of my report, Madam President. May I make a motion? Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brain to receive report and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Mr. Bears.
This report says that after we heard comments, I just want to let the record show that we did not hear any comments from the public on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Bears. Any other discussion?
Just making sure everybody knows.
Any
This is
objection?
the time.
Motion carries. Number 10, take appropriate action to
moved.
move voting precinct number 260 to the Ward 2 Fire Protection District Number 1 Fire Station from the former location at Homewood Fire Station. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 11, consideration of adopting a resolution approving various agreements related to the issuance of bonds and/or refunding of bonds for the various special service districts. I have a motion by Mr. Entrepont and a second by Mr. Bears. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 12, consideration of
12.
adopting a resolution
Second.
approving a cooperative endeavor agreement for the Wild Horse Ridge Shoreline Protection Project. I have a motion by Mr. Scott, Mr. Abshire, and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 13, consideration of adopting ordinance
Move on
rescinding
13.
ordinance number 7258 due to the prospective bidder's decision not to proceed with the sale. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 14, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application
Move on
to the
14.
Office of
Second.
Community Development for the Louisiana Watershed Initiative's Regional Capacity Building Grant for Region 4. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any, Mr. Guillory?
Just one thing, just want to thank you, Dennis, for as much work as you put into this and everything, Dennis. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 15, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the city of Lake Charles to overlay Broad Street between Falconer Lane and Swift Plant Road in
So
Ward
moved.
3.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 16, consideration of adopting a resolution
Move on
approving
16.
expropriation of property for the LA 3092 Lake Street at Ham Reed Road project in Ward 3. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Fornum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 17, consideration of adopting resolutions
So move
for
all
the
bullets.
following procurement, contractual or related activities for the calendar year 2020. A, authorize the parish treasurer and our parish purchasing agent to issue and execute purchase orders. B, authorize the parish purchasing agent to utilize state contract purchasing procedures, advertise for bids and requests for proposals, or piggyback on other Louisiana governmental entity contracts for applicable purchases and standard bid items. C, declare various movable assets, heavy equipment, and vehicles as surplus property and authorize the disposal of said items. D, authorize the parish treasurer and our parish purchasing agent to execute a governmental entity sales tax exemption certificate. E, authorize the parish administrator to execute any procurement related contracts which are under $100,000 and are not required to be formally procured. F, authorize the parish administrator or his designee to execute agreements for procurement under $100,000, services, or other day-to-day operating activities. G, authorize the parish administrator or parish treasurer to execute all risk management and health clinic-related activities for 2020. H, authorize the parish administrator or his designee to execute any documents related to day-to-day operating activities, including but not limited to office space, leasing activities for recurring rental revenues, environmental or similar reporting activities, community rating system or similar program certifications, grant-related periodic reporting and reimbursements requests, parish park keeper agreement or other park recreational activity. I, authorize the parish administrator and/or the parish treasurer to execute any documents related to the day-to-day grant activities, including the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program, HMAP, the Watershed Initiative Program, the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and the Homeland Security Grant Program, or the Restore Act Grant. J, authorize the parish administrator, parish engineer, and/or public works director to execute any documents to provide consent, permission, or approval related to use or activity conducted within parish road rights of way or public utility easements. K, authorize the parish administrator and/or the director of planning and development to execute procurement contracts related to private property activities including demolitions or condemned structures, junk removal, downed trees, or other debris removal, and sewer abatement issues. L, authorize the library director to execute any procurement-related contracts for the library system which are under $100,000 and are not required to be formally procured. I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Mr. Latour.
I'd just like to let the record be known that just because there's a $100,000 threshold, that everything, we still have to follow bid laws before anybody gets any questions. They're not just going to be an open checkbook. So just wanted to clarify that. They still have to do the bid laws, get the 3 bids before they purchase anything. So I yield back. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 18.
Move on 18.
Consideration of adopting
All
resolution.
bullets.
Second.
Consideration of adopting resolutions for the following for the calendar year 2020 as requested by the Human Services Department. A, authorize the Director of Human Services to execute pragmatic agreements under the Community Service Block Grant CSBG Act and the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program LIHEAP. B, authorize the Director of Human Services to execute program-specific agreements with homeowners relative to housing assistance payment, HAP contracts. C, authorize the Director of Human Services and our Workforce Development Board Director to execute pragmatic agreements for all programs administered under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. D, approve a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the Southwest Louisiana Area Health Education Center for nursing and clerical services at the Calcasieu Parish Health Unit. E, approve cooperative endeavor agreements for participation and funding assistance in support of the 2020 Summer Food Service Program. F, approve a low-income home energy assistance program, LIHEAP agreement. G, acknowledge the submittal of minutes from the Calcasieu Parish Human Services Advisory Board for a meeting held on July 23, 2019 and September 17, 2019. And H, approve changes to the fee structure for the Calcasieu Parish Public Transit System effective January 1st of 2020. I have a motion by Ms. Trimming and all bullets, and a second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Number 19.
Move to defer for 30 days.
I have a motion by Mr. McMillan to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion?
Madam President, if you could just read the item in, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Consideration of adopting an ordinance approving the use of the following properties by the City of Lake Charles for the Path Home Initiative Program. A, 1902 Evans Street, B, 1904 Evans Street, and C, 401 Goss Boulevard. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 20, take appropriate action on the following bids and proposals received by the parish purchasing agent.
Move on 20, both bullets.
A, proposals for
Second.
external audit services. The staff recommends the proposal of McElroy, Quirk, and Birch be accepted. B, mosquito control chemicals. The staff recommends to respective low responsible and responsive bids, Attico LLC, Clark Mosquito Control Products Incorporated, and Target Specialty Products be accepted. I have a motion by Mr. Bears and all bullets, and a second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion?
Oh, wait. That was a motion by Mr. Brown.
Motion by Mr. Brain, and a second by Mr. Abshire.
And Madam President,
still
there
have
are,
C, D, and E.
there are more items on that.
There is?
Keep reading.
Okay. I'm cutting this thing short, huh? Just, it's a lot of reading tonight. I should have drank some water first. Let's go. C, I'm at C. Mosquito control chemicals and solvents. Staff recommends the respective low and responsible and responsive bids are Reladine, Propelli Oil Acquisition, and Target Specialty Products be accepted. D, sewer pumps and related parts. The staff recommends the bid of Magnolia Pump and Equipment Incorporated be accepted. E, drainage improvements of various bores in wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. The Director of Public Works recommend that the low bid in the amount of $5,072,483.51 of Williams Equipment Services LLC be accepted. F, uniforms. The staff recommends the respective low responsible and responsive bids of Acadian Promotional Products Incorporated, Barnes Incorporated, and Centus Corporation be accepted. Now, we have a motion by Mr. Brain in all bullets, and a second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion? Mr. Bears.
So, bullet E.
Yes, sir.
Imagine, Mr. Rainwright, you probably guess where I'm fixing to go with this. Drainage improvements in all the wards. Is there any way to talk to this contractor and make sure that we don't have the same thing happen with there's another contractor, and I'm not gonna name their name because it wasn't their fault. But,
5S.
either way, you know, do they have a crew and a staff that's gonna start on this thing and finish it, and we're not gonna have to go rebid portions? And I mean, I just don't want that happening again. We get a road project, then we got, you know, we're waiting 5 months for catch basins. All the culverts are in the ground, and we still got, you know, holes and yellow tape around places where catch basins are supposed to have been built.
You're just making sure.
I'm just making sure if there's any way we can kind of say, check on them, say, look, make sure you have your ducks in a row when we pull the trigger on this.
We have checked on the, madam, you know.
Mr. Rainwright.
We have checked on the company, you know, they're a reputable company and done a lot of work in the state of Louisiana. They're based out of Leesville. We feel like they're capable of doing the work, and we'll discuss many of the things we learned in the first project at the pre-construction meeting. So, you know, where we have to bid these, we're not in a position to tell them every last thing that they can do in every order. This one was already too far in the queue to make some changes, honestly, we'd like to make, but we will have those discussions and do our best to try and learn from the first ones and you know, smooth it out, so.
Right. And that's a good thing, because I'm glad we did learn, because, you know, and I know that until they hand the project back over to us, we're not liable, but still, with these holes and these sides of the roads, you know, washing out and stuff, I mean, hey, they can take however long they want, but they still need to remember that, you know, it's the safety factor, you know, and, you know, just I have some areas that I'm really concerned about, and I know the situation, I know what happened, but just make sure that's, you know, up front and center with some of these folks, with this company, and I appreciate y'all taking care of that.
Any other discussion? Mr. Scott.
Does this project come with a time frame built into it, or is this, he made a statement of, I know they can take as long as they want, that's not.
No, all the project.
I just want to make sure that's not.
I don't know the exact date, I can get it from Terry, I'm sure, but yeah, they all have built-in time and liquidated damages and stipulations.
Are these projects going out too big? You know, all over the parish for this one company, and maybe not just this one, but maybe you shouldn't be bidding $5 million worth of projects all over the parish. Maybe downsize those to several million. Would that, you know, be a discussion?
It's definitely a discussion we're having. Again, I kind of referred to Mr. Barrett. This one was in the pipeline. We would have had to totally undo this project to go that route. We're going to look for some better ways maybe, but the more you can put together in this kind of work, this is very, the type of work we're talking about here, it takes a lot of equipment, a lot of manpower, it's muddy, it's not nice, easy construction projects. You're working in traffic, you're working in people's yards. So the more we can put together here, we do get an economy of scale, but, and we feel like we're holding the prices down, but
we are looking for some opportunities to kind of maybe eliminate some of the working over here, working over there, and things like that. We're gonna, again, be in discussion with the contractor and try and manage that a little differently this time.
Have you had a discussion with some of these contractors just to see what they think would be more manageable? Well, you know, would they rather bid out half the projects on the east side and the other ones on the west side and see how they could win both possibly, but at least the MOB and demob is probably some of the things that takes a lot of time. So, and then one day he's got to hurry up and send his guys to the east side to make, you know, Mr. Landry happy. Next day he's got to go to Mr. Bears to make, so pulling them back and forth, you know, maybe it's just a discussion they could have. That's all I'm
Yes, sir.
saying.
It is, and again, what you are seeing here too, just to let you know, I think these projects are going to come down a little bit in scale. A lot of these are what we had called hotspot projects that were catch up on years and years of projects old that needed to be done. So, you know, we're kind of getting to the end of that original list, and now we'll be more into going forward into what we call road prep projects, which are sort of trailing or going right ahead of Tim's overlay program. So we feel like some of these big, intense drainage projects are going to scale down a little bit, actually.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 21, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts. A, Recreation District Number 1 of Ward
Move
4,
defer
Mr.
for
Jeremy
30
D.
days.
Plantis. I have a
Second.
motion by Mr. McMillan to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Brain. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. B, Southwest Louisiana Convention and Visitors Bureau, Mr. Rob King.
Reappoint both.
I have a motion by Ms.
King
Trimmer to reappoint
and
Mr. Rob King
Laverne.
and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. B2, Mr. Mark Laverne. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmer to reappoint Mr. Mark Laverne and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. C, Waterworks District Number 10 of Ward
Move
7,
to
Mr. Andrew
appoint
Sonnier.
Mr. Thor McKay.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Mr. Bears to appoint Mr. Thor McKay and a second by Mr. Brain. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. D, West Calcasieu Community Center
Move to
Authority, Ms.
reappoint
Evelyn White.
Evelyn White.
I have a motion by Ms. Trimmer to reappoint Ms. Evelyn White and a second by Mr. Fordham. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. E, Workforce
Like to move to
Development
defer for
Board,
30
Ms. Stacy
days.
Fortno. I have a motion by Mr. Latour to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Before we adjourn, number 22 is an advised item. And before we adjourn, I'd like to invite everyone to the Christmas at the Courthouse event that will take place tomorrow, Friday, December 6th, from 3 p.m., to 8 p.m. at the courthouse. Santa Claus, Miss Claus, the Grinch, Rudolph, and several others will be here to take pictures and spread Christmas cheers. The F.K. White Jazz Band will be here to perform Christmas favorites. We will have Flip the Lights on the courthouse at 5:30 p.m. and watch a couple of Christmas classics on the big screen. We're going to have free popcorn, cotton candy, soft drinks will be served. Please join us tomorrow night. Mr. Guidry.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. That was a special added part to this. I think Mr. Bill Summers said that there will be a dunking booth for all upper management with the parish.
They didn't get that memo.
Don't go.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Third.